Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is technically part 4 in the 68 Camaro project known as Basket Case. I did 2 other videos back in 2014 and never got back to finishing or working on the car. I did an overview video, which is part 3. If you haven't seen that, go back and check that out. And today I'm going to start actually working on the car. Now let me show you what my plans are to try to start putting this back together. Okay. So I've already talked about how I'm going to replace the whole side of the car, and that is going to be the A-pillar, the windshield frame, the roof structure here, the wheel houses, and the rocker panels. Now, my initial thought was that I was going to have to take apart all of this to get all of this back in the car. But after looking it over, I've decided to take a different approach. The nice thing here is there is a overlap. So there's spot welds that is holding this section onto everything else, right? Now over here, there is another inner piece and another inner piece here. Well, the reality is I can separate these welds, all these spot welds, remove this piece. I can remove the A-pillar itself, and I can remove this lower piece. I also will remove the inner rocker panel. What that'll leave me with is the outer rocker panel, the windshield frame, and everything else behind it. What I plan to do is put in a brace somewhere going from here up to here. And that's going to keep this from flexing and coming down and changing its shape. So that's critical. On the car, to start with, what I need to do is remove the upper dash panel and then remove the main dash panel, because all of those welds are behind these pieces. So this will take a little bit of work. You know, there's going to be a series of spot welds up here on top. There will be some welds down here below. Kind of hard to see, but there will be some welds there, some braces. But this shouldn't take much to get it out. It's just going to be getting all these welds loose. Now once I do that, then I can start looking at getting the pieces separated on the inside so that I can remove everything else. Now to show you something else I've been doing on the back section, and I want to show you this because this kind of throws me a little bit. These 2 Y-shaped panels, they're original, they were in the car, and you know, I'm all about symmetry. And those are not symmetrical. Those are angled, and I guess that's got to be how they were at the factory. But what I ended up doing was setting in the package shelf and kind of fine-tuning where it connects to these pieces that support the hinges and where it overlaps the existing inner structure, and everything is clamped at this point. I don't want to weld this in just yet because I may need to get in there and do some other work. So I'm going to have to leave this in place with clamps. On the back section of the car, what I need to do is cut out the outer wheelhouse, this whole section where the window is placed. I'm going to leave the inner wheelhouse and the inner rocker and remove everything else outside except for the A-pillar assembly there where the hinges go. So that's the plan, and I think it's a good plan. I was also looking at the rocker panel. This is for the passenger side, and looking at how it interacts as well. So there's a couple flanges that may become, you know, I don't think they'll be in the way, but that's where the wheelhouse inserts. So that shouldn't be a problem. Up here, there are a couple more flanges that'll be in the lower section, and then this piece that goes forward internally. So if you look at this one, I think that's, well, it'll be on the other side of this piece. So I've got a lot of spot welds to remove, but I'm going to get started by removing the dash and go from there. To give you some perspective as to what I'm doing, there's a spot weld or long weld right here. There's another weld here, kind of in this corner holding it together. And then I sanded the bottom edge of this because all these yellow areas are actually going to be spot welds. And that's why I went over that with a sander, so I could see those and take a drill and try to work those in somewhat to break them loose. what I'm doing here is using my panel separator to try to weaken up the spot welds. I had to separate some of the welds on the edge and then get the panel separator tool in between and work my way across. Now I'm using an oversized drill bit, and by doing that I can just focus on getting the top part broken loose without drilling through both panels, and it seems to work just fine. Houston, we have a problem. Well, you can see that I was breaking loose these welds, taking my time, drilling these out, and then when I was separating the panel over here, I saw this crack form, and I realized, you know what, this dash panel is no good. So it looks like they had taken body filler and just piled it up on there to try to hide it. But once you start tweaking a panel, there's no hiding it. So I'm not going to be very careful with this at this point. I may just grind all this off. I don't know yet, but I'm going to get this dash panel off. This tells me that I'm going to have to separate it completely from the lower, which is fine. I do have a new panel that I can put in here, but that's how you find this stuff. Okay, so I just cut where that transition was and broke it all loose. It looks like the main panel is okay, but look at that. That's raw metal. Raw metal right there. It just didn't have time to rust yet. All this other has surface rust on it, but that is how it looked in '68 when they didn't put any protection on. Now, it looks like there's some foam here. Like they put down a foam seal first and then set the upper dash panel on. So I have to find something to put in there to seal that up. You can see more of it there. But now what I need to do is cut loose back here on the corners. There is a little corner piece that holds right there, and then of course the lower section. What I may end up doing is just cutting this whole top piece off, because I need to save the lower section, but this upper piece is junk at this point. Now that the upper panel is off, you can see this piece flexes pretty easily. What I've noticed now that I can see inside of here is this bracket. Now this transitions over into the inner brace here, and I thought I would have to take out these spot welds, but I can take out the ones going through this that holds this whole bottom piece together, and that way I can leave all this in place, and when it comes time to put this back in, I've got the location already there. The only other thing I'll have to deal with is this center brace. Now this is welded to the cowl up here and also welded there, but it is an L shape, so I can drill out those spot welds as well and leave this piece in there. That'll be the next step, getting that lower section out of the car. So at this point I have removed the dash, and I did have to change my tactic a little bit. This bracket here, when I was drilling back through, I was thinking that I was able to drill through the spot welds that held all this together. However, I believe that the brace that is on the bottom of the dash is spot welded to the dash itself, the big brace, and then these were spot welded on top. So I kind of had to come from up above to break these loose, but I'm going to leave those in place. And the center bracket here, I was able to drill through these spot welds and break it loose pretty easily. So this is spot welded to this panel, and the dash panel, as I was saying, this is spot welded here. And again, I thought I could weld or drill through that, but that didn't work. So now you can see that one spot weld just popped loose in the center there, and then the other side had to work it loose. So that takes care of the dash pieces. And also, to remove the dash, I had to take the bracket loose for the brake pedal because it went underneath the dash. So that had to come out as well. Now, the next step, you can see I've got a piece of square tubing in there. I'm going to go into that corner back there where the pinch weld is for the inner and outer rocker, and come up into this corner where this overlap is, right here. Somewhere in this area I will weld that in, and then I will add the other bracing as I talked about. The piece that I have to trim it down just a little bit, about 3 inches, and that'll be just fine. So once I get that in, then I want to do some more cross bracing. Now again, I really don't think this is going to matter much because there is no weight on this car, and I'm going to have both the full rocker panel in place over there and the inner in place here. So I'm just going to do it anyway though. Okay, there's a slight change of plan. I did get all the square tubing in that I wanted, so that's all taken care of. It's not moving, not going anywhere. However, as I was looking over where I wanted to make my cuts with the plasma cutter, I realized, and I guess this is just an oversight, but I want to point this out. I thought that this lower piece was independent of the upper piece. But the more I look at it, the more I realize there is no seam here. There's no separation. I was looking at this piece and realized, this is a cap on top. So I'm going to have to change this whole A-pillar. I could, in theory, cut this somewhere and weld it back together, but I'm not going to do that. That is not my style. I'd rather have it all one piece. So I'm looking this over. Basically, this is still where the overlap is for the upper section of the windshield frame. I'm going to have to separate these spot welds here. Go back to the idea of separating all of these pieces, or all these spot welds, so that this can come out. However, I'm still planning to remove this piece from the new panel and this piece from the new panel. What that'll keep me from doing is digging in overly far into this section, because now that lower piece would be all the way up into here, which would get a lot more involved. So I think that's probably the best approach. So I'm going to start cutting out material and whittle down what I need. And of course I did get the glass out of the way, and I'm still planning on cutting the wheelhouse. I'll cut around the spot welds that are holding this together, so I'll cut below them and just kind of separate that later. But that's where we're at. All right, I'm using my little Yes Welder plasma cutter. I think I'm going to pause for a second. I may add one little brace back here on this corner for the package shelf. Okay, so I added just a vertical brace right here just to support this piece, which will be left kind of vulnerable once I remove the upper section. The plasma cutter works a lot better if you plug it in. Note. So quick observation, I'm going to have to remove the metal here, if I haven't mentioned that already, for the outer wheelhouse, overlap here where the inner structure attaches. But what I want to point out, I'm glad I didn't cut into this. There is a brace inside of here, and that looks like it's a support structure for the outer rocker panel. Back here, initially I was thinking I was going to have to remove this piece, but now I see there's an overlap for the outer rocker panel. So I can cut this inside here, get rid of this whole flange, cut this all along that corner, let's say, and allow this piece to come off. Up here, what I've done is I've separated the metal where it overlaps underneath the, let's say, inner cowl, and I will have to cut this loose. I'm going to cut this around this perimeter here and get this out of the way. So any more details I'll show you as I move forward. Okay, I'm at a point now where I'm going to stop this video. There's too much going on that I need to address that will take up so much time that I can't film it all. And what I'm getting at is cutting off or separating all the spot welds, as I mentioned, around the wheelhouse, down here on the rocker panel, all the spot welds, and then up here in the front section, I need to remove these two mounts, these brackets that hold the mount points for the doors, because I'm using the ones from the new panel. So this piece and that piece, this flange, the lower section there of the A-pillar, and what's left of the rocker panel has to come off. So there's all these spot welds that have to come out. That section has to come out, and of course, like I said, the wheelhouse and stuff. So at this point, what I've done is I've separated this upper section. That's the piece that basically corresponds to that right there. And so that's taken care of. I do have a little bit of repair work I need to do right here with the plasma cutter gouged into that, but I'll take care of that because this piece is staying, and that implies as well that this piece is coming off, this piece is coming off, and so is the inner rocker panel. So here's some of the pieces that I've cut off. Here is the windshield frame, and you can see that that section there would be a continuation of this piece, which is this main bracket here. So regardless, this has to come out. And I'm gonna I'll take all this stuff apart, and that'll be, some of that will be shown in the next video. But then in the next video, I can also show you what it looks like with all this stuff removed. So, as I said, that'll be the end of this video. Now, I know that I've been repeating myself on multiple things, talking about the spot welds and the flanges, the material and all that stuff, but I think it's really important because if somebody is digging this deep into one of these cars, it helps to know all these little things that make it work. You know, the Camaro, it feels like it's a bit more complicated than the Mustangs. You know, there's multiple layers of material, whereas the Mustang feels relatively simple in comparison. And part of that, I think, is because, you know, this car has a subframe versus the frame rails that are welded directly to the Mustang unibody. So anyway, there's going to be more to come on this. I look forward to sharing it with you. If you would, leave a comment on this video, leave a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about this. I'm really enjoying myself right now working on this project, and there's more to come. But until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.